Hey guys, Zane here with another One Take review, and today I wanted to talk about the new Muse album, Will of the People. Will of the People is the latest studio album from well-loved English rock band Muse, and in the early years of their career, they were often compared to Radiohead. Not that they were actually all that similar, but I mean, hey, people needed to latch on to Radiohead somehow at the time, seeing as how relevant they were within the realm of rock and alternative music, and Muse were the perfect band for that. They got a lot of high praise back in the day, despite some, again, negative reactions to those same comparisons, but for the most part, Muse's early work has gone down as a very well-loved part of very late 90s and very early 2000s rock music. However, it has seemed like since 2009's The Resistance, Muse have been hell-bent on practically pissing all over their fanbase and their legacy in turn. It seems like the vast majority, at the very least, of the Muse fanbase seems to be in agreement that the band's last genuinely great effort was 2006's Black Holes and Revelations, arguably their most popular album as well, and since then it's just kind of all been downhill, from dreadfully boring, unremarkable records like Drones to failed experiments like Simulation Theory. Nothing has seemed to really work out for Muse, and as such, people weren't really expecting Will of the People to be even half decent. Not even the most diehard Muse fans were, and those people were absolutely correct in not expecting much good from this project. Will of the People's lyricism is more of the faux Orwellian songwriting style that frontman and primary songwriter Matt Bellamy has been seemingly stuck on for absolutely no reason for years now. Bellamy's takes on the government, big industries, revolutions, etc., feel more tired than ever, and that's saying something because for the past several records they have felt very tired. So to see Bellamy just continue to do the same exact thing over and over is increasingly disappointing with each record, and it's not that he uses something that is incapable of being good. A radical-leaning lyrical style that questions the government, that questions authority, is something that many artists over many decades have done extraordinarily well across a variety of genres. The problem is that Matt Bellamy's take on the topic of things like revolution honestly lacks depth. Nearly every track on Will of the People sees Muse's vocalists throwing out theatrical lines about overthrowing the government, or the average man overthrowing the universal government, I guess you could say in a way, and major world leaders being taken down, without actually saying anything of substance about the current political climate in any country. It doesn't matter whether it's England, if it's the United States, or something more topical at the moment like Russia or Ukraine. There's just nothing even remotely important being said on Will of the People, and that's disappointing coming from an album that feels very self-important in nature. I mean, sure, you can talk about overthrowing a government, but if you don't know what to do after that government is overthrown, then that kind of just means that everything you did was pointless and that things are going to fall into chaos, and that's kind of what Muse are supporting here. They are leading a sort of political charge that has no end game, and as such, it just sort of feels like a nothing record that has nothing even remotely unique or important to say. The past couple of years have been absolutely insane in terms of politics, whether it be major wars starting that will surely go down in history as world-turning events, or people being stripped of their rights. There is a lot of stuff lately that Matt Bellamy could have worked with. He had so much on the table that he could have molded to his own vision and created something actually powerful for once, but unfortunately he just doesn't, and insists on doing the same exact lines and quotes and quips that he's done over and over for well over a decade now, and throwing in a couple lyrics here or there regarding shady, to say the least, conspiracy theories certainly doesn't help his case either. This ultimately culminates in a record that could have been very powerful in the current world of politics at the moment, a world that is undeniably absolutely insane right now. The world needs records like Will of the People to say something that's actually serious and precise and willing to have a concept of what they're talking about, but it feels like nothing more than Muse patting themselves on the back for repeating the same exact concepts and ideas that they've been going over for a number of albums now. Will of the People's actual existence, however, doesn't necessarily stem from politics per se. It actually stems from Muse's record label, Warner Records, requesting that the band release a proper greatest hits compilation, something that would have been much preferable to this overall, but they didn't want to do that for whatever reason, and they decided that instead of just putting a bunch of old songs together, songs that everybody already knows are great for whatever reason, they decided to try and revisit each of their individual sounds that they've taken up over their decades of existence, and create new material with those sounds, something that varies in nature and feels like a career retrospective, while introducing the new Muse, the new wave of their music. If this in 2022 sounds like a recipe for a watered-down version of Muse that no one is going to really care about besides actual Muse fans, then you'd be about right. Songs like Won't Stand Down fail to cling on to the over-the-top stadium-like hard rock of records like Black Holes and Revelations, and virtually every track on here to some extent bathes in the dramatic nature that has plagued Muse for basically their entire career, albeit in a much lesser and more unremarkable form than it would have been on an album like, say, Absolution. Muse have actually properly described Will of the People as a greatest hits compilation of new songs, and if this is meant to be some sort of modern take on a career retrospective, then there is perhaps no worse way to demonstrate the greatness that Muse once maintained. And at this point, even though I don't often listen to greatest hits compilations, I personally think it would have been much, much preferable. Not everything about Will of the People is bad. I mean, it's worse than just weak, don't get me wrong, but still, it does handle its electronic influences much, much better than Simulation Theory ever did. While they may not be good songs in and of themselves, tracks like You Make Me Feel Like It's Halloween and Compliance do at least understand themselves compositionally in terms of the usage of these electronic influences, and as such, I feel like they are successful on that front, even if the lyrical content, the actual tones of the instruments themselves, and the general vibe of the record overall just is not there to really make up for any sort of decency that is being lost. I'm not trying to say that the electronic sound suddenly fits Muse now, it didn't on Simulation Theory and it really doesn't here, but they just have an odd sort of fascination with old synthesizers that sound dated yet produced in a way that is so awkward that it sounds mildly modernized but still disgustingly flat at the same time. It just is not a sound that really suits Muse in any given way overall, whether it be pairing with the songwriting well or pairing with their performance styles well. It just does not go well in any particular way. At least, though, I can say that Will of the People does understand what it wants to do and what it wants to be better than the band's previous attempts at a similar sound and aesthetic. So overall, I think that very few, if any, even people thought that Will of the People was going to be even a half-decent record, let alone a great one. It's just certainly not, and I think that even the most diehard Muse fans would at least somewhat agree to the argument that much of their more recent output has been questionable at best, even in its strongest moments. I'm going to give Will of the People 2 stars out of 5. My one take on this record is that despite honing their electronic abilities, Will of the People feels like a limp rendition of a variety of sounds that once worked extraordinarily well for Muse when they were still a genuinely great band. So again, 2 stars out of 5, and with that being said, that's the end of this review, and I will see you guys in the next one.